Councilmember Barber.
Present.
Councilmember Berenson. Member Burke absent. Councilmember Holman.
Present.
Councilmember Kellogg.
Present.
Councilmember Moorhead.
Present.
Councilmember Townsend.
Present.
Mayor Turnbow.
Present. Would you please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. And tonight we have a presentation to be made by the chairwoman of the Raymore Arts Commission, Ms. Sharon Paris. Sharon?
Good evening, Mayor Turnbow and Commission members. It's my pleasure to be here again in front of you to introduce the exhibit from the 3rd Annual Student Art Contest, which, as you know, is co-sponsored by the Arts Commission and Tri-County Art League. Sandy Braga, who is president of the Tri-County Art League, sends her regrets. She wanted to be here tonight, but she's got one of those winter colds that's just hanging on. So she just wanted to send her best to everybody and thank you for your support. So tonight it's my honor to show you the winners of the Student Art Contest for 2017. This year we had elementary through high school. And it's really nice to see that we have so many young people here tonight that represent the artwork that you see hanging. What I'd like to do is read off the winning entries, and as I read off the name, if that's your name, please stand up so that we can see who you are. I'm going to start first with the fine art, or the artwork, the 2D artwork, and I'll start with the high school. First place went to Dayton Mosher. And I believe that was the piece straight back there on the silk. Okay. Dayton's not here? Okay. Second place was Shelby Ronberg. Okay. Third place went to Logan Mangren. No? No high school? Okay. The middle school, first place was Andrea Juarez. Andrea? Okay, the one in the corner there, thank you. Second place, middle school, went to Avery Keel. Avery. And I know she did the piece back there, straight back, right, Avery? The one with the flower petals on it? Okay, thank you very much. Third place for middle school went to Caleb Dula. Caleb? Okay, I think he did the owl below there. Is that right, Mike? Okay. Now for the elementary school winners, our first place went to Scarlett Mitchell. Scarlett? You here? Was she here?
I just got a little excited. Sorry.
Oh, okay. Our second place went to Frida. Okay. Frida. Excuse me, Frida, what's your last name? Okay, I'm sorry I didn't have your last name, I apologize. And our third place went to Chloe Garrison in the elementary category. Now for the photography category, this just was high school and middle school. Our first place winner was Jaden Pyburn. Did I pronounce that name right? Okay, I guess he's not here, or she's not here. I apologize. I don't know for sure. The second place was Leona Hall in photography in high school, and you can see the photography around there. And our third place high school was Elise Stock. Elise, thank you. And finally, our middle school photography winners, first place was Madison Morgan. Second place was Maddie Sevi. Not here. Okay, and our third place was Katie Davis. And I know you're here. Katie. Well, we want to thank all of these students for participating this year. It's my pleasure, again, to sponsor such a wonderful, and we thank the commission and the city for helping us with this annual event. And we were pleased this year to have it in Centerview, which was a great venue. It's a wonderful venue for anything, but we hope to have it again there next year with the help of the commission. And again, it's just a great opportunity to showcase the artwork from the students in the local area. And I know we have one of the teachers here tonight, and that's Chris Dillon from East Middle School. She's the art teacher. So Chris, you want to stand up? Oh, I'm sorry. Emily Foff?
Yep.
Oh, okay, and you're from Raymore
Bridal Ridge.
Bridal Ridge, okay, yes. Thank you very much. Great. So, again, the exhibit will be up for a bit of time, and we look forward to having more exhibits. And thank you again, and may I wish all of you a very joyous holiday season. Thank you.
Thank you, Sharon. Thank you very much. On behalf of the City Council and myself, thank you for all the hard work and putting a contest on. And all those that participated, we appreciate your artwork, and it does brighten up our day here to see it inside our council chamber. So thank you for allowing us to display it as well. Congratulations. And we'll move on to staff reports. Mr. Fearborn.
Thank you, sir. I would ask Mr. Carteret to make a report for community development.
Thank you, sir. 3 items this evening to go through. First, always just like to give an update on construction activity that's happening in the city. The city certainly has seen an uptick in development activity to occur. Last year in 2016, we had a total of 215 permits. We're already at this year, we're at a total of 273. So very, very active development period for the city. Had a very, very strong November with still permits coming in for the month of December. Second, I wanted to briefly go over the calendar for the Planning and Zoning Commission. Their next meeting is Tuesday, December 19th. They will consider the site plan for the Hawk Ridge Park development that's going to be happening there. And then third, want to showcase a project that the department's been working on as part of the fiscal year 18 budget. Council approved funding for development of a mapping application. And the city, Heather Eisenbarth, our GIS coordinator, has been working on this application. And we want to be able to showcase that tonight. I've asked the city planner, David Gress, to come up and showcase this. This is an application that is titled basically What's New in My Neighborhood, what's happening out throughout the city. So we wanted to showcase the different projects that do occur in our city, both capital projects, geo bond projects, park projects, as well as private development projects. So what I'm going to do is actually broadcast this to your computers, take over your computers just momentarily so you can see the application itself, and have Mr. Gress walk through that application.
Thank you, sir. Sure.
Broadcast to your screens, okay? Perfect.
Thank you, sir. Mayor, members of the council. As you're well aware, there are a lot of activities going on, either currently throughout the city of Raymore or are planned to begin with in the near future, whether they are CIP projects or private development projects that are taking place throughout the city. And because of that, we also have a lot of residents out there that are curious about those projects, as far as what the project is in general or how far along the project might be, or when they can expect that project to be completed. So one of the things, as Mr. Carteret mentioned, that we've been working on is an application that can be available to the residents to come and look at. If they see a project out in the field, they can come to one place on our website or a number of places throughout the website and open up this public-facing app and learn about whatever project they see throughout the community. So you'll see here there are a number of places that you can go on our website to access this app. There's a a link on the community development homepage as well as the Public Works homepage. But you can see here at the very bottom of this search bar, current projects. If you just click this button right here, it will open up the mapping app that Mr. Carteret mentioned. Take a few minutes here because of broadcasting. But ideally, we wanted to create sort of a one-stop shop where a resident can come and find out any information they want to know that's publicly available at that time for any project throughout the city that's either currently underway or is scheduled to be underway within the near future. So this is the first screen that you'll see here as you pop open this app, and you'll see there are 3 different colors here, and we've divided all of the projects out into 3 different categories, whether they're parks and recreation projects, infrastructure and geobond projects, or general community development projects. And that involves anything from rezoning of a piece of land, private development, development of a new neighborhood, anything along those lines. You'll see these 3 different colors you'll see as they're kind of spread out over this map here. And there are a number of ways that a resident can scroll through this app to find information on a project. You know, you might have someone who wants to scroll through one by one and read about each one of these projects, or you might have a resident that's driving around the city and might happen to see a rezoning sign out for a property or workers out constructing a building. They can come here and scroll to that specific point where they saw that project out in the field and look at what that project might be about. So I'll use the example of one of the projects you'll hear this evening for consideration, and that's the rezoning of Cumberland Plaza, which is a city-initiated project here. So you'll see it's point number 80. So if you're out driving around, there's currently a public hearing sign placed at that property that a resident might have seen driving around, and they would come to this app and like I said, learn more about that project. So you'll see the first thing that pops up is a map of the project, just a general overview. And if you click this little pop-up here, it gives you a brief overview of kind of what the project is, what the request is. And as you scroll down, you'll see a general timeline of either when the Planning and Zoning Commission met or when they're scheduled to meet. And that'll consistently be updated whether it's the upcoming city council meeting or the second reading of the city council meeting. It's staff's responsibility to keep this information up to date as that project goes through the timeline. And you'll see here is just a general overview of the project. And as you scroll through these, there's some different information that's also available. And if you scroll down, you'll see here the different links that might be available for a project, whether it's the staff report, the site plan or renderings that are often provided by the developer of that project. And if you want to click this and just find out a little more detailed information about the project, or perhaps what the Planning and Zoning Commission's recommendation was, or when the next city council meeting is, all you have to do is click that attachment and it will pull this up from our website, and you'll be able to scroll through the staff report for that specific project. And you can do that for a number of any of the projects on here. And as you'll see, if I can get back to the map, if you go, these are more specific for some of the private development projects, but if you scroll back through some of our CIP projects, we'll use the streetlight installation here project that the city will be working on in the future. You'll see this link right at the top, which is the project ID, and this will actually link it right back to the CIP that is adopted by the city. So you can get information about the cost for that project, when the city is expected to move forward with that project, when the expected completion is, just a little bit more detailed information than you'd be able to get from the map itself. So the residents can find this on the website or through this app as well. One thing I will mention is that, you know, this piece of technology, much like any other piece of technology that's out there, is constantly changing. So while there are a number of things that staff wanted to include in this mapping app, it's not something that was created specifically for the city of Raymore. So there are a number of things that we were limited on as far as the functionality or personalizing it specifically for the city. And that being said, it's also something that is constantly changing. So this is just the first take at this app. It's likely that something else will be developed next year that might have a little more functionality to it. And it might be a little more user-friendly on the user end. This is just something that was supported by council and staff to get this out here and have it as a resource for the community to use. And we'd be happy to hear any feedback that you all might hear from your constituents, or things that you might notice as you're using the app that we can take into consideration as we kind of tweak this app throughout the next couple months to make sure it's working properly. That would conclude my presentation. If you have any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer them for you.
Thank you. Anybody have any questions? Ms. Abdullah.
Thank you. Just a quick question. I know you said that staff would be updating it. Is there a regular schedule for it to be updated, or just as something changes on a project?
Yes, great question. So for the CIP projects, every Monday or so, the CIP committee meets and just discusses the status of those projects, what they can expect coming up in the next couple weeks. So the CIP projects you'll see here, there is a project status for each one of these, whether it's under construction, planning, under review. And so these, not every project will change weekly, but the ones that are moving forward in progress will change weekly. So Mr. Carteret and the CIP committee will meet, and they'll pass those updates along to me or another staff member who could then go in and update those project statuses for those that are in progress. With the private development, those are kind of updated as they go through Planning and Zoning Commission through City Council. So those will be updated 2 or 3 times throughout the development process, usually, unless there's any substantial changes that occur between the developer and the city, if any, depending on what actions take place in between those meetings. But it's anticipated that weekly updates will occur to this project. And as projects are completed, those projects will remain on the app for some time. Staff hasn't really determined what that time frame will be. But we want to make sure that residents who might not have been aware of the project before it was completed are still able to go back and access that information, and that they're not getting broken links to any projects. And one thing that we've been working on with Mr. Icky as well, as I'm sure you all receive, are the weekly updates of projects that are going on throughout the city. And what this app is able to do is that Mr. Icky can send out a link saying, the city will be resurfacing this road this upcoming week. To learn more about this project, visit this link, and the link that he can insert into that weekly report will take them directly to the slide of this app that pertains to that specific project. So that's why it's important to keep that information on the app for a period of time after it's completed, so that those weekly reports are still, the information that's in those reports is still valid, and that residents can still access that information after the project's completed.
Okay. Anyone else? Thank you, sir.
Absolutely.
Appreciate
Thank you all.
Anything else, Jim?
That concludes staff report, sir.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Fearborn.
Thank you, Mr. Gress. Thank you, Mr. Carteret. I would call on Chief Zimmerman to make a report for Police Emergency Management.
Thank you, Mr. Fearborn. As you see in front of you, I've included some holiday safety tips, although a lot of these ideas and suggestions and recommendations for our citizens are good year-round, to be safe and to be aware of their surroundings. And so I'd like to go over just a few of these that I've put in front of you tonight, because these are going to be coming out on our website. Mr. Icky will be putting these tips out to members of our community between now and the end of the year, just some things to remember to be safe as they're out shopping and spending time either away from home or at their residences. So what you're seeing here, you're going to be seeing on our website in the days to come through the end of the year. But you see a number of different categories there in the safety tips, driving and how to be safe when you're driving and when you're shopping and you're going to shopping malls, and being aware of your surroundings. Keeping your doors locked and parking in well-lighted areas, never leaving your car unoccupied or running, never leaving children in your car. One of the things, and you probably see it in our weekly report that we encounter fairly frequently, is vehicles unlocked and valuables left in vehicles. So, we have vehicles stolen, we have individuals leaving keys in cars and things like that. So, they're making it very easy for an opportunistic thief to steal a vehicle or steal items out of the car. We see valuables and packages left in plain sight all of the time. But as I said, I can't stress enough being aware of your surroundings as you're approaching your vehicle, if you're leaving a store in the evening or at night, to always be paying attention to things like that. When you're shopping, leaving purses or bags or valuables in the shopping cart unattended, and those sorts of things. Avoid carrying large amounts of cash. I know that there are alternative methods to pay for merchandise, such as one-time or multi-use disposable credit cards, rather than carrying cash and risking, a theft of a large amount of cash. Also, your children. Teaching your children to know their names, addresses, phone numbers, and that sort of thing. Have a plan in place if you get separated from a child at the mall, so that they know to go to a security person or a police officer. Lots of officers working off duty during the holiday season as well. At home, be extra cautious, locking doors, locking windows, always. And again, all of these tips and suggestions are good year-round. But even if you're just leaving for a short period of time, make sure doors and windows are locked. I know you see a lot of this in the news media. Avoid having packages delivered to your house, left on your front doorstep, because that's just an easy pickup for somebody who is out looking for those kinds of things being delivered. Something that a lot of folks don't think about, when you get that big expensive TV for Christmas, don't leave the box out at the curb after you got that big TV for Christmas, because that's just an invitation to someone that you got a really nice present for Christmas. So cut those boxes up before you set those things out at the curb as well. Be aware that sometimes criminals are posing as couriers or package delivery when they come to your door. It's not uncommon for people to take advantage of the generosity of the folks in our community and solicit donations when there really is no charitable organization that they're soliciting donations for. And always notify the police of anything suspicious that's going on in your neighborhood or anything that you see. You probably noticed there in the information that I've given you about both hosting parties and attending parties. It's never safe and never appropriate to drink and drive. If you're hosting a party, designate a driver that will not be consuming alcohol at the party, or arrange for some other type of transportation for your guests if they are going to drink. But also know your limits. If you're attending a party but you have a designated driver, alcohol can be very deadly, even for individuals who are not driving. So lots and lots of good tips here. Obviously 3 pages of tips, and I'm not going to go through all of them. But know that you'll be seeing them on the website, and we'll be posting those throughout the coming weeks just to remind folks about how to stay safe during the holidays and all throughout the rest of the year as well. And one final note, unless you all have questions, we swore in a new police officer today. Molly Brackeen was sworn in today. You may have seen some pictures on our website. She comes to us from Sugar Creek, where she was a police officer there for 6 years, and she has started her break-in here with us, and so we're excited to have her. Anybody have any questions?
Anyone have any questions of the chief? Thanks, Chief.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Mr. Fearborn?
Thank you, Chief, and my apologies for using the term call on. I don't like to call on people. I prefer to ask them. Next week, the work session currently has 1 item on the agenda and a possibility of an executive session for the council. The 1 item that is on is we will finally be bringing you the endowment fund and the process that we're going to be proposing for continuing the endowment fund by using a foundation here in the city. And so we'll be explaining all the details of that. We'll hope that we can complete the trifecta of presenters for that and have finance here to talk about their aspects of it. But in the meantime, both Mr. Icky and Mr. Zur are prepared, so I want to get that before the end of the year. And finally, just a reminder that this is the one and only regular council meeting for you all for this particular month. The next regular council meeting will be on January 8th. So the new business items tonight will be unfinished business items on January 8th for you all's consideration. That concludes staff reports this evening, sir.
Thank you, sir. Any question, Mr. Fearborn? Thank you. We'll move on to the consent agenda. We have 2 items on the consent agenda. Is there a motion to dispose of the consent agenda?
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve the consent agenda, including item A, City Council minutes from November 27th, 2017, and B, Public Works security camera installation acceptance and final payment.
I'll second the motion, sir.
Motion's been made and seconded to accept both items on the consent agenda. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor? Motion carries 7 yes, 1 absent. We'll move on to unfinished business. Could I please have the second reading of Bill 3314 by title only?
The second reading of Bill 3314 by title only, an ordinance of the City of Raymore, Missouri, calling for and establishing the date of the general municipal election to be held on April 3rd, 2018.
Thank you. Is there a motion to dispose of the second reading of Bill 3314?
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve Bill 3314, calling for the April 3rd, 2018 regular municipal election.
I'll second the motion, sir.
Motion been made and seconded to approve the second reading of Bill 3314. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor? Motion carries 7-0, one absent. Could I please have the second reading of Bill 3315 by title only?
The second reading of Bill 3315 by title only, an ordinance of the City of Raymore, Missouri, amending Schedule 1A of Title III, Traffic Codes, by establishing speed limits within the city limits of Raymore, Cass County, Missouri.
Is there a motion to dispose of Bill 3315?
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve Bill 3315, amending the traffic codes in reference to 58 Highway.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to approve the second reading of Bill 3315. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion? Opposed? Motion carries 6 yes, 1 no, and 1 absent. Can I please have the second reading of Bill 3316 by title only?
The second reading of Bill 3316 by title only, an ordinance of the City of Raymore, Missouri, amending Schedule 1A of Title III, Traffic Codes, by establishing speed limits within the city limits of Raymore, Cass County, Missouri.
Is there a motion to approve the second reading of Bill 3316?
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve Bill 3316, amending traffic codes, Kurzweil Road.
Is there a
Second.
second? Second. Motion's been made and seconded to approve the second reading of Bill 3316. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion? Motion carries 7-0, 1 absent. Could I please have the second reading of Bill 3319 by title only?
The second reading of Bill 3319 by title only, an ordinance of the City of Raymore, Missouri, approving the final plat for Westbrook at Creekmore, 13th plat, lots 336 through 340, and lots 363, 364, 369, and 370, and tracks double J, double K, and double L, located in the southwest quarter of Section 4, Township 46 North, Range 32 West, Raymore, Cass County, Missouri.
Is there a motion to dispose of Bill 3319?
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve Bill 3319, Westbrook at Creekmore, 13th plat.
I'll second the motion, sir.
Motion's been made and seconded to approve the second reading of Bill 3319. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion? Motion carries 7-0, 1 absent. So we'll now move on to new business. Can I please have the first reading of Bill 3324 by title only?
The first reading of Bill 3324 by title only, an ordinance of the City of Raymore, Missouri, amending the zoning map from C1 Neighborhood Commercial District to C2 General Commercial District, lots 1 through 4 in Cumberland Plaza Subdivision, Raymore, Cass County, Missouri.
Thank you. This item requires a public hearing, so I'll open the public hearing at this time and ask for a staff report.
Thank you, sir. I would ask Mr. Cataret to make a staff report on this agenda item.
Thank you, sir. Bill 3324 proposes the rezoning of 4 parcels that are located on the north side of 58 Highway at its intersection with Adams Street. These 4 properties are part of the Cumberland Plaza development. There's 3 different owners of the total 4 properties. The current zoning of the properties is C1, which is neighborhood commercial. The proposal is to reclassify the zoning to C2, which is general commercial. This request, it was initiated by city staff. Similar to what the city did back in 2009, we did a number of city-initiated rezonings where there needed to be some clarification with the zoning of property. We did contact the property owners, of course, to get their consensus on moving forward with this request. A zoning request does require a public hearing. We did advertise for this evening. Do need to enter into the record the notices that were sent to the affected property owners as well as the adjacent property owners. Notice of publication in the Journal, the Unified Development Code, application that was submitted, the growth management plan, the staff report. When the properties were initially platted before development occurred, the zoning was actually C2. It's a little unclear. Over the years, the zoning actually fluctuated based upon different zoning maps we looked at between C2 and C1. So when the official zoning map was established back in '04 to clarify the zoning of all the property within the city, the only ordinance we could find on file had the property zoned to C1. So that's what we made the zoning. At this time, what we're proposing to do, all the surrounding commercial land area is zone C2. We believe that this pocket of C1 is more appropriately zoned C2 to match its neighbors both to the east and to the west. So that's the reason for the classification change. Planning Commission submitted proposed findings on the rezoning requests, and it was at their November 21st meeting that they did vote 6-0 to accept those findings and forward this request onto the City Council with a recommendation of approval. I've included the minutes from that meeting for your consideration. There was a good neighbor meeting held, didn't have any public comments on this application then or since. So it's, other than the owners agreeing that they want the property rezoned, that's the only discussion we've had with anyone on this particular application. And that would conclude staff report.
Thank you, sir. Any questions of staff? Ms. Abdelgawad.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I feel like this was kind of clear in our packet, but just for people who are watching, who are wondering, what is the difference between C1 and C2? Like, what kinds of things would be allowed with the rezoning that aren't allowed now?
Yes, there's only actually, the differences are very minor. There's some differences on the development standards, setbacks, et cetera, but those have been established by the current buildings. The use differences, there's really only 3 uses that would be allowed in C2 that's not allowed in C1. A hotel or motel is one use, and then indoor activities, whether it be sport activities or entertainment activities, would be allowed in the C2. So if somebody wanted to open, for example, an indoor gymnasium, they would need the C2 zoning for that use. And honestly, that is what started this part of this whole city looking at it, as somebody was looking at one of the buildings for a use that actually wasn't allowed in the C1. And so it just prompted the discussion to occur. But the differences are really quite minor.
Mr. Barber.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I think you answered this, but just to clarify, if this was coming to rezone, if this was coming off of agriculture and we were going to zone it all brand new, sounds like we would go C2 initially.
That is correct. You know, another comment that had been made previously by the Planning Commission is the kaleidoscope of zoning. We have I'm not showing the zoning map of the whole area. There's a lot of different districts in this one little pocket area. And having it match C2, which the other commercial properties, makes sense. That's why the Planning Commission agreed to move forward with this.
Any other questions? Thank you. Did you have something, Jay? Oh, okay. At this point, we'll open it up to the public. If someone would like to comment on this particular item at this time, please step forward and state your name and address for the record. Seeing no one, we'll go ahead and close the public hearing at this time, and I'll ask for a motion to dispose of this item.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve Bill 3324, rezoning of Cumberland Plaza lots 1 through 4.
I'll second the motion, sir.
Motion's been made and seconded to approve the first reading of Bill 3324. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion? Motion carries 7-0, one absent. Could I please have the first reading of Bill 3325 by title only?
The first reading of Bill 3325 by title only, an ordinance of the City of Raymore, Missouri, amending the zoning map from A, Agricultural District, to C3, Regional Commercial District, a part of Tract 1 of the Good Ranch, Raymore, Cass County, Missouri.
Thank you. This item also requires a public hearing at this time, so I'll go ahead and open the public hearing and ask for a staff report.
Thank you, Your Honor. I would ask Mr. Cataret to also make a staff report on this item.
Thank you, sir. Bill 3325 proposes a rezoning of a sliver of land. It's 9.2 acres in size. It's at the northwest corner of Dean Avenue and North Cass Parkway. This property is owned by Good Otis, and it's officially referred to as Tract 1. Tract 1 was initially rezoned to C3 commercial many, many years ago. And the southern boundary line of Tract 1 was intended to be what would be North Cass Parkway. At that time, the roadway was just a dream. It was being planned, it wasn't constructed. When the roadway was actually constructed, the alignment shifted further to the south, a more straight alignment rather than a curved alignment going into Interstate 49. But when that right-of-way was acquired and the roadway constructed, it left this sliver of agriculturally zoned land. It has sat that way for a number of years. To avoid any conflicts for future development there, or the need to have a potential developer go through the rezoning process. Staff thought it was best to do a city-initiated rezoning. Let's just clean up the zoning at this intersection. It was always intended to be zoned commercial. It's very clear on the zoning map that's a projection of agricultural zone in a commercial area. But it is a rezoning request, does require a public hearing, which was advertised for this evening. Do need to enter into the record the notice to the property owner, Good Otis, who has consented to the request, as well as any adjoining property owners. Notice of publication in the Journal, the Unified Development Code, the application that was submitted, growth management plan, and the staff report submitted to you this evening. The Planning Commission submitted proposed findings. It was at their November 21st meeting that they voted 6-0 to accept those findings and forward this case on to City Council with a recommendation of approval. Again, a good neighbor meeting was held. We have had no public comment on this application. That concludes staff report.
Thank you, sir. Any questions of staff? Hearing none, I'll open it to the public right now. If anyone would like to address the council on this particular item, please step forward and state your name and address for the record. Seeing no one approach, I'll go ahead and close the public hearing at this time and ask for a motion to dispose of Bill 3325.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve Bill 3325, rezoning part of the Good Ranch Tract 1.
I'll second the motion, sir.
Motion's been made and seconded to approve Bill 3325. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion? Motion carries 7-0, one absent. Could I please have the first reading of Bill 3320 by title only?
The first reading of Bill 3320 by title only, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Raymore, Missouri, awarding a contract to Neil Settle Printing for printing services.
Thank you. Is there a staff report, sir?
Thank you, sir. I would ask Mr. Icky to make a staff report on this agenda item.
Thank you, sir. Mayor and City Council, before you tonight is an agreement with Neil Settle Printing. This contract this is a contract that we have had previously with Neil Settle for printing services for all of our city departments. As part of this bid process, we developed a list of items that many of the departments used throughout the year and provided that as part of the bid. Neil Settle did come in as the lowest and best bidder in this contract. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions of staff? Thank you, Mike. Appreciate it. Is there a motion to dispose of Bill 3320?
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve Bill 3320, award of contract to Neil Settle Printing for printing services.
I'll second the motion, sir.
Motion's been made and seconded to approve the first reading of Bill 3320. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion? Motion carries 7-0, one absent. Thank you. Could I please have the first reading of Bill 3321 by title only?
The first reading of Bill 3321 by title only, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Raymore awarding a contract to Fast Signs for sign fabrication and printing services.
Thank you. Is there a staff report?
Thank you, sir. I would also ask Mr. Icky to make a report on this agenda item.
Thank you, sir. Before you tonight is the agreement with Fast Signs for sign fabrication for city projects, both public works, community development, as well as the marketing department.
Thank you. Any questions of staff? Thank you, Mike.
Thank you.
Is there a motion to dispose of Bill 3321?
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve Bill 3321, award of contract to Fast Signs for sign production and printing.
Is there a second?
Second, sir.
Motion been made and seconded to approve the first reading of Bill 3321. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion? Motion carries 7-0, one absent. Can I please have the first reading of Bill 3322 by title only?
The first reading of Bill 3322 by title only, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Raymore appointing Kapke and Willerth, LLC, as the city attorney for the City of Raymore, Missouri, and authorizing the execution of a contract for services.
Thank you. Is there a staff report?
Thank you, sir. 2 years ago, following a request for qualifications process, and after many years of service, Kapke and Willerth was once again renewed for a 2-year contract to serve as the city's general counsel and city attorney. At that time, Mr. Willerth, who had been the attorney representing the city from Kapke and Willerth, began a slow transition process into retirement. which I understand is going very, very well. And Mr. Zur capably stepped into those very big shoes and has been serving on both the Planning and Zoning Commission as their attorney, an occasional visit to the park board meetings as their attorney, and of course as city's general counsel. Mr. Zur and Kapke and Willerth appeared before the city council at a work session in October where the city manager was trying to make a determination on whether the council wished to renew the contract for another 2-year period or whether you wish to go out for a request for qualifications. At that meeting, the council did direct that utilizing the same scope of services and the fee schedule that had been presented at the prior 2-year period, that Kapke and Willerth be brought before you all for a renewal of a contract for the 2-year period beginning February 1st of 2018 and extending into January 31st of 2020. We're now into 2020s. So that is now before you accordingly.
Thank you, sir. Any questions of staff? Hearing none, is there a motion to dispose of Bill 3322?
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve Bill 3322, award of contract for city attorney.
I'll second the motion, sir.
Motion been made and seconded to approve the first reading of Bill 3322. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion? Motion carries 7-0, one absent. Can I please have the first reading of Bill 3323 by title only?
The first reading of Bill 3323 by title only, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Raymore appointing William N. Marshall III as the city prosecutor for the City of Raymore, Missouri, and authorizing the execution of a contract for services.
Thank you. Is there a staff report?
Thank you, sir. Like Kapke and Willerth, Mr. Marshall has served the city for a very many years as our city prosecutor. Like Kapke and Willerth, Mr. Marshall's services were brought before the City Council at that same work session in October to make a determination on how you would like to proceed. At that meeting, Mr. Marshall introduced a proposal to the council for a new fee schedule associated. That fee schedule and a similar scope of services is attached. Mr. Marshall, per Councilmember Moorhead's instructions, I have had discussions with Mr. Marshall relative to him giving us an hourly outline and a daily outline of the services that he's providing to the city. That was more of an ad hoc request on the part of the council member, so it's not included in the scope of services. Mr. Marshall assures us that those will be provided. Mr. Marshall's absence tonight is, I believe, my fault. When I was describing to him the fact that there would not be a second reading in December and the reading would be in January to actually hire him, I think he thought I was talking about first reading in January and second reading in January, and so there was a mix-up on his attendance. I assure you that one is on your city manager, and I apologize for his absence. Bill 3323 is presented to the City Council accordingly.
Thank you. Any questions of staff? There are none. Is there a motion to dispose of the first reading of Bill 3323?
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve Bill 3323 to award a contract to the city prosecutor.
I'll second the motion, sir.
Motion been made and seconded to approve Bill 3323. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion? Motion carries 7-0, one absent. Can I please have the first reading of Bill 3326 by title only?
The first reading of Bill 3326 by title only, an ordinance of the City of Raymore, Missouri, amending Chapter 545, Property Maintenance Regulations of the Raymore City Code.
Thank you. Is there a staff report?
Thank you, sir. I would ask Mr. Cataret to make a staff report on this agenda item.
Thank you, sir. In the summer of 2017, staff held a summit with several local organizations to discuss the topic of hoarding. Representatives at the meeting included those from the City Police Department, from Code Enforcement, from South Metropolitan Fire Protection District, from Cass County Health Department, as well as for the Pathways Community Mental Health Organization. The discussion kind of centered around the issue of hoarding, There was discussion about what tools the city currently had to address the issue. We do have, of course, a property maintenance code that covers general topics, as well as a nuisance code, but we really didn't have an overall code that addressed the more serious issue of hoarding. So we as a group talked through that topic. A lot of different suggestions came out of the meeting, but one of the consensus items was for the city to proceed in doing research and actually preparing an ordinance to help address the issue of hoarding. So staff commenced to work on that. We presented a draft to council back in August at work session, where you provided suggestions and comments and wanted some additional research completed. Brought back a revised draft for your December 4th work session, where the consensus at that meeting was to submit a draft ordinance for council consideration at this evening's meeting. So Bill 3326 before you, it is a proposal to add language to our property maintenance code. So it would add a new section, a new article titled hoarding. It would include various provisions. It would include definitions. The important definition is the one on dangerous accumulation, what that actually, how that is defined. And then the provisions would identify what constitutes a dangerous accumulation, what constitutes an unlawful accumulation. So we have a number of examples within the code where it would be unlawful to maintain a dangerous accumulation, and describe what that actually specifically would be. The ordinance would also address the hoarding of animals, another topic that came up, of course, through the animal control and the health department at the summit. And we did include provisions regarding the hoarding of animals as well. The adoption of the bill this evening, staff does believe it'll provide the provisions within code that allows us to work closely with other agencies. So we'll work obviously very closely on the topic of hoarding. It is of such importance. Obviously, the police department will be immediately involved, as well as other organizations, to try to come up with an overall approach to the issue itself. Typically, a hoarding situation takes a long time to occur and is a serious nature that can't be abated quickly, like most property maintenance code violations. They're fairly straightforward to address. The issue of hoarding is again, a much bigger issue, and one that we have to work together with other organizations. We believe this tool, this ordinance, helps provide that holistic approach to the issue, and staff does request approval of the ordinance this evening. That concludes staff report.
Thank you, sir. Any questions of staff? If there are none, is there a motion to dispose of Bill 3326?
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve Bill 3326, Amendment to Property Maintenance Code on Hoarding.
I'll second the motion, sir, and may the force be with you.
There's been a motion and a second to approve the first reading of Bill 3326. Any further discussion? Ms. Abdelgawad.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to share, when we first talked about this in the very first work session, I was really hesitant to think of city staff being able to diagnose a mental health condition, which hoarding is. But I am really happy with the changes that came back in the second work session. And those changes mostly took away some vague language that anybody, not anybody, but someone trying to make best use of their home might block a doorway or something like that. And so some of that language was taken out, and really the focus is on safety. If you accumulate enough stuff that it poses a safety hazard to the occupant of the building or occupants who might come in for emergency services, then that's really what this is about. I'm happy with the changes and happy with how this worked out.
Great. Anyone else? There's no further discussion. All those in favor of the motion? Motion carries 7-0, one absent. Item H, at the beginning of the meeting, the sponsor had asked that be pulled from the agenda. If there's no objections, that item will be pulled from the agenda this evening. And we'll move on to public comments. If anyone in the public like to address the council at this time, please come forward, state your name and address for the record, and keep your comments to 5 minutes or less. Anyone? If not, we'll move on to mayor-council communication. Mr. Berenson, we'll start with you tonight, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll start off by saying the artwork is fantastic in the room. It is nice to mix it up a little bit and have some nice colorful things to look at. Second, Mr. Gress, where's he at? Great presentation tonight. Very professional as always. Thank you for that. I was reading through the police spotter today, and a lot of what Chief Zimmerman said kind of rang true again. A lot of the things we see in the blotter are things that are preventable. Some of the car break-ins. I saw one car, somebody left the key in it. So good timing on the safety tips, and I hope people take those to heart. A lot of the things, again, that we're seeing are very easily preventable by these tips. And last, I'll congratulate our new police officer. I didn't hear her last name, Molly
Brackeen.
Brackeen. Well, congratulations to her and welcome aboard. And that's all, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Kellogg.
No comment, Mr. Mayor, thank you.
Okay. Mr. Townsend.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Bernstein got me again. Thank you for all the, checked off everything I was going to speak to tonight. But again, thank you to the Arts Commission, outstanding for the students who won with their artwork. To Mr. Gress on tonight's presentation, outstanding. Definitely a lot of this information and comments I hear from the citizens as well as on social media about what's this building going over here, what's the construction going on down this road. This is excellent. Getting the word out as far as the activities that's going on in the city. I'm certain that helps Mr. Tapp as well in his presentation of different organizations seeking to do business with the city. The more information we can get out there, the better, and definitely in concert with our communication department, outstanding work on that. And also to echo, welcome to our new police officer this evening. Saw that on social media also, so outstanding there again, getting the word out on the new police officers on our force. So again, thanks, Chief. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Ms. Abdelgawad.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was also going to thank the Arts Commission for hosting that art contest and congratulate the students who won and thank them for sharing their artwork with us. Will that be up for a month or is it a quarter? It's for a quarter, right? A quarter. Okay, so about 3-4 months we'll have this artwork from the students in the council chambers, and so I invite anyone who isn't up here regularly to come on up and take a peek at it. It's gorgeous. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Barber.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I too want to congratulate the students. You know, it's neat to see them come in and participate, be a part of this, and then be recognized. You know, I look at all the art done. It all looks, I mean, I like it all. I'd be a horrible judge. I'd give everybody first place. And I really do appreciate that. I've gotten a lot of comments about the lights too out on City Hall and the trees and all that, and it's bright. And today, my oldest daughter's birthday, and she's bringing her annual trip to the city, and I'll be picking her up on the 22nd, and she always asks me, what's new in Raymore? And I always excited to take her around and show her what's new. So I won't go into what I'm going to be taking her around, but we all know and we've seen it's going to be a lengthy little trip around to show her everything. And fortunately, I don't have all the new houses to show her, but 273, was that the number you said? And if my math is right, it could be wrong, but 58, is that a difference of 58 from last year to this year? Yeah, that says something right there. So I always love hearing that number. Thanks. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, sir. Mr. Moorhead.
Tried to save my voice. I can only talk so much. You know, first of all, commendation on all the arts efforts. I do want to add Heather Eisenbarth was mentioned, our GIS person, and so she deserves some credit as well for that presentation and all that the citizens get to use. I'm not going to steal away from Mr. Holman, but tonight's agenda meant a great deal to me, and I reflected a great deal over this last week, because really what the agenda was riddled was our history. Because, and you know, just taking for example, we've had some discussion regarding the 58 speed limit changes, and I really I've been very respectful of all the comments on both sides of that, and it hit me. And I mean no disrespect to anybody here, but I'm not sure anybody lived here in 72 when I moved here. There were 900 of us. 58 highway was 2 lanes, one way each way, and it was 45 miles an hour. And I remember when I wanted to go up and get some baseball cards up at Jeter's, I would stand with my 10-speed at Johnston Drive, wait for a car to pass at 45 mile an hour. I would get my bike on 58 highway and pedal as fast as I could, because the only stop was Woodson. But yet no cars came. There was so little traffic. So 45 miles an hour made perfect sense. Today, are you kidding me? Now, Mr. Willerth, who is not here, although his firm services have been engaged for 2 more years, Mr. Willerth and I were on opposite ends of the table regarding the late 90s expansion of 58 highway, because I represented a number of homeowners and businesses that did not want that to expand. And I remember everybody telling me, this is the dumbest idea in the world to expand to 5 lanes. Now, how many out there now believe that's a dumb idea? Why? Because if you tried to turn at Johnston Drive, which had no light, it would take 10, 15 minutes to get on a single lane road to go 30 miles an hour all the way to 71 highway. The traffic was so bad. I've had calls from homeowners saying, why are you guys lowering the speed limit to 40 miles an hour? Why? Because of time. 10 years from now, and some of the things we do here deals with time. 10 years from now, when we're 30, 35,000, I don't know how many 58 more per year, or the 273 times 10, that's putting a lot of cars on a road that's already full. And I drive that in the mornings and the evenings. And there are times now where it's not safe to drive 45 because there's so much traffic. So the reality is I supported lowering to 40 because that was an inevitability we can't deny. Because at some point the traffic will grow to a point where just organically you can't drive 45. Now, on the other hand, I supported that bill with a reservation because there were comments made about 58 highway on the farther east side, especially between the 2 curves. And it sounds slightly hypocritical expanding that up to 40, but I wanted to get the western part passed to get that speed limit adjusted. Respectfully, we're going to be very conscientious and aware of speed limit changes in that area. And I have no doubt that this council as a whole would support lowering the speed limit if there were safety concerns. And I know our police department will be monitoring that, as well as Public Works, etc. There's no intention of doing that. So those of us that supported that tonight, I don't believe we're asking for recklessness, but in time, that will change too. As we continue to grow east, as we expand 58 past J, more cars will occur over there, which means greater safety issue, and that will have to be addressed. The key is nonconformity of use. And, you know, we look at that at our zoning, why we've adjusted the zoning today, because we want things used the right way. Hoarding, that's why we're supportive of hoarding, because again, public safety. Respectfully, in time, as others realize the issue regarding nonconformity of use with cars on their property, Bill 3327 will come back because rationally it makes good sense. Right now, I was the sponsor. I felt it was premature. We haven't quite got enough on the table for everybody to really put that in proper perspective. But let me put it to you this way. 273 R1 homes moving into Raymore. We're not building more farmettes. We're building closer together. And like rats in a cage, the more we get together, the more heat develops. And as communities age and more people start using their properties outside of what's intended zoning, it will get rezoned. or it will get better addressed to how to use that property. Tonight was a wonderful agenda for us to look at and see that we will really feel the benefit of this in time. These are all very important. I thought tonight was a very powerful meeting. Thank you for the little extra diatribe, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Holman.
Well, thank you, sir. For those of you that have not seen Mr. Zur or Mr. Cataret or even Mr. Iki's apparel, although I'm a little disappointed he's not actually wearing it. Tonight is Star Wars night for the third year in a row. And there are actually two things that came up during the agenda that I just have to add. The first is, Chief, when we get our drone, can we name it the Millennium Falcon? By the way, this is kind of a look back over the past year using Star Wars terms. I've done this. This is my third year in a row. And my understanding, just as it just came to me as we passed the rehiring or reauthorization of the contract for Kapke and Willerth, somebody told me something. Maybe it was the force that when Mr. Furborn told Mr. Zur that we were retaining them for another period because of their excellent service and his excellent work, that he said in his best Han Solo voice, "I think you just can't bear to let a gorgeous guy like me out of your sight." In April of last year, we began to miss the longtime contributions of Rogue One, alias Mrs. Hubach. We are fortunate and grateful, however, for the addition of two new Jedi Knights to the council, Mr. Townsend and Mr. Berenson. It is apparent to us that the force is strong in these two. In June of this year, there was a great disturbance in the force when the anxiously awaited Centerview community opened. It is reported that Mayor Turnbow almost fainted and told Mr. Furborn it was as if 20,000 voices cried out in joy all at once. I feel that something wonderful has happened. In the past year, we saw the opening of the Raymore Marketplace on the old Dean property. Many said that the project could not be accomplished due to the restrictions of small land size, cost, and access point, to which Mr. Tapp replied in his best Han Solo voice, "Never tell me the odds." Two more fantastic additions to Raymore this past year were the tree and the seed pod sculptures by artist Chet Redman. It is rumored that he was inspired by Master Yoda, who said, "Difficult to see, always in motion is the future." The 155th Street is now so smooth that Councilmember Barber says that as soon as the bridge is finished, he is sure that he can use it to make the Kessel Run in less than 12 parsecs. We have learned in the past year or two that while we continue to develop our identity to those unfamiliar with Raymore, we in Raymore have known all along who and what we are. It was said in the community conversations that Raymore is a place where people speak to strangers, where they help out their neighbors, or those who are down or in need. This is why the citizens love living in Raymore. It is much like the force. Raymore surrounds us, it penetrates us, it is what binds us together. And I will leave you with 10 rules to follow in 2018 to ensure happiness and peace in the new year. Number 10, use the force. Number 9, know your father. Number 8, steer clear of the dark side. Number 7, fly fast. Number 6, befriend an Ewok. Number 5, don't anger the Wookiee and occasionally let the Wookiee win. 4, build a droid. 3, avoid bounty hunters. Number 2, stay in formation and stay on target. And number 1, be mindful of your feelings and have no fear. Merry Christmas, and may the force be with you.
Well, we got to give that one some applause there. That's some thought. Good job, Jay. To finish up, Mr. Gress, great job. Where'd he go? Did he take off? There he is back there. Great job on your presentation. It's good to know that we have access to that kind of drill-down information on what's going on in the city. Thank you for that. And I know that takes a lot of work to keep updated, Jim, so thank you and your staff for doing that. The Mayor's Christmas tree lighting that went on a week ago Friday went great. It was a beautiful evening. Tree looks awesome. The tree lane, I think there were like a dozen or so participants. If you haven't been out there to TV Hanna Station, please get out there and take a look. It really is a pretty park at night. And thanks again to the Arts Commission for their work. The art's on the wall here. Going to be displayed for a while. If you get a chance, come up to the council chamber. You should see it. It really is a display of the talent of our young people in our community, and we really do appreciate that. And with that said, I will entertain a motion to go into executive session.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we enter into executive session to discuss litigation matters.
I'll second the motion, sir.
Motion's been made and seconded. Please have the roll call.
Councilmember Abdel-Gawad?
Yes.
Councilmember Barber?
Yes.
Councilmember Berenson?
Yes.
Councilmember Burke, absent. Councilmember Holman?
Yes.
Councilmember Kellogg?
Yes.
Councilmember Moorhead?
Yes.
Councilmember Townsend?
Yes.
We'll be going into executive session at this time. When we adjourn from executive session, we'll return briefly to adjourn from the regular session. Thank you.